Hi, and welcome everyone back to UI5ers Live. Today we have two topics. The first one is presented by Merlin Beutelberger from the UI5 core team. He will introduce the brand new UI5 Linter. That's a tool with which you can check the code quality of your UI5 applications. That's especially important in preparation to UI5 2.0, but not only for that. And yeah, hi Merlin.
Hey.
And he will be supported by Matthias Oswald, also from the same team, from the UI5 core team. When you want to give him something to do, then just ask questions because this is mainly what he is here joining for. Hi, Matthias.
Hi, thanks.
Okay, and we have Jens Pflüger. He's the product owner of the UI5 tables team. He will talk about the CellSelector and CopyProvider. That's new tools inside the UI5 table that should be able to help the user to interact in more ways with the table, and he will tell you all the details later on.
Hello, everybody.
All right, and of course we have some regular hosts. That's Stefan Beck, the Chief Product Owner of UI5.
Hey.
And Peter Müßig, UI5's Chief Architect. Hi, Peter.
Hi.
All right, and I, Andreas Kunz, will be your host today. And let's start now with Merlin and the new linter. So Merlin, what can this tool do and how do you use it?
All right, it's really great to be back on UI5ers Live. And today I have the honor of introducing this new tool to you, the UI5 Linter Static Code Analysis Tool for UI5. Our colleague Oliver already announced it yesterday in a blog post. Maybe you already read that. And I just want to give you like an overview and a little deep dive into what this tool is, what it's about, what we want to achieve, what it can do today, and where we want to go with it. So yeah, you can head over, read the blog post, also some interesting pages linked there to give you the whole context. But I'll just start and dive into the linter now. So just to go over it, what the linter is about. It's basically applying best practices, helping you apply best practices for your UI5 projects. We know it's quite hard to keep track of all the evolving best practices in UI5, and we hope that with this tool, you can more easily see how much work it might be in your project to modernize it, where you might use deprecated API or like some bad practice, and you're not even aware of it. And yeah, also to then monitor your code once you get it to the current best practices. You know, they are evolving. So with this tool, then hopefully in the future, you can keep track and make sure that you don't introduce bad practices again, and also that you keep up to date with evolving best practices as you go with the project. And what we released yesterday is the first developer preview release, basically. So it's version 0.1.0. So that intended to suggest that it's a kind of beta release. So take it with a grain of salt. It doesn't detect all the things that we wanted to, and we'll get to that later. But what it can already do today, and is somewhat good at it, and what is for us the most important feature, it detects the usage of deprecated UI5 API and the usage of global variables. And these two things are like the main things you should look at in your projects and try and resolve. So you should switch over to the current best practice APIs for all the things, and you should get rid of global variables in your applications. And UI5 Linter is here to help you with that. And let me just demo it. So I'll go over to my Visual Studio Code, and I have the OpenUI5 sample app here. It's already following the best practices quite well. So actually there are no findings. So I had to add some files which use some deprecated API. So I'll start by installing it. A global npm install will do for now. Of course, you should also add it to the project's package.json dependencies if you want to have it running in your CI, which we, of course, highly recommend. But I just want to execute it globally in my CLI, so I install it like this, and then I execute it like this, just UI5 lint. And yeah, here we have the findings for the two, as you can see, linter demo files. So the first one is a controller. And if you're using VS Code, you can see if I hover over these findings, I see a line under it, which should suggest it's a link. So if I press and hold Command on Mac, I guess it's Control on Windows, and click, I jump directly to the place in the code where this finding is reported for. So in this case, the blocked property for the button is deprecated. And similar, the attach tab function is also deprecated. You shouldn't use it. And this is already really great. And like we didn't have this before. There were some plugins also available for UI5 and also OpenUI5, which did some of these things. But as you can also see later, we have additional detections and use a kind of different approach. So yeah, this works. More interesting maybe is also that it works for XML views. So here we have a couple of findings, and I'll just click on the first one, where I'm using a deprecated control, the datetime input, and also a couple of deprecated properties here. If I now want to dive into this datetime input, like how can I resolve this deprecation, I can, and this is also suggested down here, use the -- details flag to get some more details on this finding. Let's just do this. And now you can see for this exact same finding, we now have this details section, which first tells me since when this control is actually deprecated, and then also has the text from the demo kit and a link to the suggested replacement, which is the ZepM date picker. Yeah, that's basically already the whole idea. We took a look at other tools like ESLint and tried to be very close to it. So you like don't need to learn a lot of things to use this. And yeah, basically, if you have a UI5 app, you can just already use it today and get some findings and start working on resolving them. I also have another project just to illustrate a more real example, maybe. So this is the shopping cart app from the UI5 demo kit, but a very old version of it. You can see that here in the package.js, and it still depends on OpenUI5 160. So this is really old and probably not following best practices as of today. And indeed, if we execute UI5 lint here, we not only get deprecated functions, but also things like global variables here. Yeah, like here the SAP global variable is used, which should be replaced with an import with a require to the device module. Right. Yeah, that's already the demo. So I'll just go back to the slides and give you some more information on what we are doing in this tool, and hopefully answer some questions you might have already.
There are already two questions actually from Volker Butzek. Actually, the first one came to my mind exactly when it came in from Volker. The first one is there extensibility with custom rules? So like in ESLint, you can plug in custom rules. Can you also write custom rules for this?
Maybe let me keep that in mind and first go over what we did with this tool, and then maybe I think later we can better discuss this.
Okay, and the second question, just to keep it also in mind, probably is why is it not just an ESLint extension? Why?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll get to that. But thank you. Great questions. Yeah. So just to give you an overview of the architecture, what we were thinking with this tool and how we approached this problem of like providing a linter for UI5. Basically, first of all, we needed to figure out where do we get the information from, what controls are deprecated. And there is a good source, which is a source code from UI5, which provides JS-doc tags for deprecated API. And this is then reflected in demo kit and also in the TypeScript types. And since TypeScript is now recommended way of developing modern UI5 applications, we can certainly rely on these types to get that information. And also the other way around, by using these types in a linting tool, we can then also improve them. If we see, oh, something is not well reflected here, then we can improve the types. And then everyone who's using TypeScript for developing UI5 also benefits from the same. So pretty early on, we identified that this would be a good approach to just reuse the types, and with that, TypeScript basically. So what we're doing is in the UI5 linter here in the middle, we take the source code of your project, which is not TypeScript, right? It's JavaScript. And we bring it with a set of transpilers, also for XML. You'll see that in a second. We transpile it in a way that TypeScript can understand it. And then we just use the TypeScript compiler, so basically TSC, with the UI5 types and ask it, what deprecated functions can you identify here? And this is working really well, as you could just see in the project. Yeah, just quickly dive into the transpiler so you get an idea what we're doing there. The first one is the AMD transpiler. So as you know, for UI5, we have this asynchronous module definition, but not the standard define and require syntax, but the customized one, this SAP UI define and SAP UI require. And basically, our AMD transpiler here transpiles this to the ESM standard, or yeah, ECMAScript module definition, a format that can be understood by TypeScript. Not only the imports can be understood by TypeScript, so it knows, or you're importing controller, and then later on, maybe you're assigning it to a variable, and then in this case, the button, and then can tell this function is called on the button, and then derive from that this is a deprecated call. We also transform the extend call back to, or over to a ES6 class, and even use it for the export if it's the return value of your define. So this even works if you export functions in one module in your define block and then use them somewhere else, like this create button function. If you call it in another file that uses this controller, there we then know, oh, the return value here is a button and SAPM button. And if you then do attach tab there, we can also detect that, all thanks to the power of TypeScript and its powerful inferring system, even for JavaScript. The other transpiler is for XML, where we basically go through the XML view and create a JavaScript representation of it. This is not really one-time compliant. Like you can't just use this as a JS view at one time. But for our purpose, for analyzing what you're using in the XML view, this works also really great. Yeah, that's already it. It's no magic. And ultimately, we just use TypeScript and the TypeScript types that are already there.
Yeah, then I have a third question, actually. Can you just save this TypeScript so you have transferred your application from JavaScript to TypeScript? Okay, I saw it's not possible for the XML views, but you want to keep them anyway, probably. But for the JavaScript code, or
Yeah,
I would say it's more JavaScript to modern JavaScript, not TypeScript.
yeah, exactly. If you look close, you see there's actually no TypeScript syntax here. It's for TypeScript we would have to add some annotations probably, at least to make it more efficient and more reliable. There are also many things we can't detect, so it has its limitations with this approach. So if you're writing TypeScript from the beginning, it's certainly better. But yeah, you can use this transpiler or any other transpiler that works similarly to transform your old school JavaScript, CommonJS style code or require.js style code to ESM and then TypeScript.
If we would go to ES modules in future, this would be a nice tool to not only use for linting, also for conversion of the project. Then, if we would.
actually also when you convert applications to TypeScript, I have done this a couple of times, and then one of the steps at least is exactly this. Having a tool for that. Of course, you have to add type information, also stuff that cannot be deduced from the JavaScript code, but at least it's a start.
We discussed this, and maybe in the future we might provide a tool for that, supporting that.
Yeah, I think right now this won't, I guess, come anytime soon, but we have a pretty good technology here at hand that we could then reuse for those purposes. So I think it's a good investment we do here right now, and I guess transforming to TypeScript is something that would be very beneficial to have. Yeah.
And shows once again, it just really makes sense to use TypeScript right in your source for your UI5 development if you can. All right, I'll just quickly go over one more slide and then I think we can answer some of the questions. So the project status today, this is a development preview. This is the first release, the first public release. It's open source, it's on GitHub. You can check out the code. You can maybe take some of it, create your own TypeScript transpiler. But you can like just really raise issues if you have ideas how to improve it, or if you see some actual issues. Yeah, this is for now just a CLI, but and I'll show that in a second, we plan some more things. So this is really just the bare minimum what we wanted to achieve for the first release, and just to see whether this is possible at all with this approach and how well it works. So it's really important to get your feedback out there. All the checks are currently based on UI5 1.120. It's basically the demo kit state for 1.120. The version shall be configurable in the future. Right now, we're fixed to this version, and dynamically downloading the type definitions. This is something we still need to work on with some more effort. And also, the checks are not complete. So this is not 100%. Like if you run this and there's no finding in your apps, it might still use some bad practices or deprecated API even. There are limitations both in what we can detect in general and also what TypeScript then can infer from your JavaScript code. So always, this is not a replacement for writing tests and having a good test coverage in your code. That's always still required. The outlook, first of all, we want to work on having more detections. So some examples here, JavaScript in HTML is somewhat common in apps. So we want to extract it and then also check it. Right now, we also don't detect any partially deprecated API or private API or restricted API. So if you use private API from UI5, we can't detect that. It's just some call and we won't report it. We can only report what we get from the type definitions if that's then deprecated. So this is something we might add in the future, hopefully. Also, TypeScript projects can't be linted with this tool right now, but this is hopefully something we can achieve rather soon. But no guarantees. But this is definitely something we want to support, that you can run this on TypeScript projects too. Same with IDE integration, Node.js API. This is all in the same bucket as like plugins for ESLint and other tools. So we would love to integrate with ESLint to already answer that question. The problem with ESLint right now, with the current release, is still that directly ESLint looks at one file. It doesn't have the context of a project. There's already a limitation that TypeScript ESLint, like the TypeScript ESLint plugin, works around by having their own parser and then having the scope of the whole project. So they can already kind of do this as a TypeScript, as a ESLint plugin. But for us, it's still tricky to integrate there. So we'll have to put in more work to get an integration there. Another aspect right now is also the performance. The UI5 Lint tool is not very fast. So in your IDE, like running it on save and then like delaying all the other linting rules too to be executed like your standard ESLint might not be the best user experience. So right now it's just a CLI, but we want to get some sort of IDE integration either with one of the established linters or via maybe an LSP, a dedicated plugin.
Don't you have that already? So you talk about TypeScript support, but is it really necessary? Because for XML, I agree with you. XML is a different thing. But if it comes to real TypeScript code, you have it already. You have the types already. You get already the IDE embedded highlighting of issues. So if you use wrong APIs or wrong at the end, then you get the node already. And also the JS and HTML part, I would also question, because it's really a bad practice. It's good for little demos, yeah, but at the end, if you think about being, how is it called? I always forget that name. Our initiative to make the code, yeah, whatever.
CSP.
CSP, thank you. Content security policy and inline scripts are forbidden for that. Yeah, so while we do that in little demos, in real applications, this would be normally not the case. But the rest, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also really showed, like, you can already do this, like, click in the findings. We're also working together with the colleagues from Fury Tools. They will integrate this into their extensions, so it runs automatically there and is part of the report they already produce for other findings. So some sort of IDE integration is already working via that. But we definitely want to have something smoother. We don't want this to be a standalone tool forever. But we just have to see. There's also some development in the ESLint project. They definitely work towards having a project scope and also to have asynchronous execution of rules, which was also a problem in the past. but we'll just have to see how far we can also go performance-wise. We see a lot of potential there. There's also a point here. It was just not the highest priority for us so far.
No worries. Looks really great.
Yeah.
Okay, this sort of explains why it's not an ESLint plugin, but
Well, I hope this explains it to some degree.
to some degree at least. But the other question was whether someone can write plugins for this here.
No. We also don't really foresee it so far. Maybe we're lacking the idea that the person that asked this question has in mind. Maybe share it in a GitHub issue. So far, we didn't really discuss this option.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know what exactly the use case here would be. So we would definitely like to cover most of the or all of the UI5 best practices here. And if you want to have something else, maybe another tool would work out. But yeah, please file an issue and then we can discuss that to see whether this might be something for the future. Yeah.
So basically, you could also write, of course, a plugin to ESLint then if you want to do any other checks. Only if your knowledge there with the TypeScript transform stuff is maybe helpful for those who want to write an extension, then of course it might be an interesting case. Okay.
Yeah, or maybe it even makes sense to integrate it into UI5 Linter directly. So please, yeah, let us know about your idea, and then we can maybe even consider making it a standard rule.
Okay, thanks, Merlin. So Merlin has talked a lot about best practices and how they are also evolving. So just to mention it here also in the video, there's a page on best practices for developers in the UI5 demo kit in the SDK documentation. And this page has been updated a lot for the 120 release, I think. So we will have the link to that below the video. All right, thanks. So now on to Jens and the new table features. So what are the new things that users can do and what do applications have to do to enable it?
I just wanted to share with you some new things what we did in the tables in the past month around the copy to clipboard functionality, which was not there so far. So in older versions, you basically have some tables like that, and depending on the content of the table, some selection of the content was possible, like here, based on the standard cell or text selection what the browser offers, but there was no way to directly select certain things, and especially here in this table, you maybe want to directly select only a certain range of IDs because you need them somewhere else and want to paste it there. So this was not possible, and for this purpose, we provided now a plugin which is called CopyProvider. And we did it as a plugin because in the meantime, I think you know, we have multiple tables. We have responsive table, grid table. We also have the smart table, and in the meantime also MTC library. And we simply do not want to implement all this stuff multiple times. So that's why we implemented as a kind of plugin. And the idea of this copy provider is that whatever is selected inside a table can be copied to the clipboard. So there will be a Control-C shortcut. And there's also the possibility to provide a copy button, which has the same functionality as alternative for keyboard. And shortly going over, I think the most interesting function that we see soon is then this extract data. So what happens in the end? So the table has no direct knowledge about what is the content. So there are controls inside, maybe even some visual controls like a rating indicator and so on. And the table doesn't know about what exactly is now the data behind that. This is part of the bindings of these individual controls, and that's why this extract data function is needed to be implemented. So let me shortly then switch to another example to demonstrate that. So we have here another example which is already available. In this case, we have a responsive table, and when you here select some rows, you see there's a copy button, but also Control-C is working. So then you see there's some indication that something was copied, and when I open then, for example, Excel, then the data is pasted there. What was there in the rows before, and and how is this implemented here in this example? Let's shortly have a look at the code. So here, what you see first is that we have here a CopyProvider attached to this table, and yeah, also provided some button in the toolbar. Where is it? Oh, I think it's added dynamically. Here, and we have implemented for this CopyProvider only this extract data function, and looking at that function, let's move that aside. In the end, the information gets in what is the row context, which column is currently relevant, and then depending on what what is expected, you can then extract the data or access the data in the model and provide corresponding version of the data. And we offer two variants. So the one is a text-based approach for the cell data, and the other one is an HTML-based approach. But HTML doesn't mean in that sense to that you copy some formatted thing, but formatted in the sense of that there are multiple properties. Like here for product, we have two properties within one column. So it's here the description and the ID. And when we look at this example here, you see there's a description and ID. By the way, here's a bug in the example. That both values are copied into one cell. So this is more or less the formatted version or the HTML version, but you could also have the other version by inserting in Excel. You can paste special, and then you can use the text version, and then you see that basically both properties are separated into individual columns, which is then more a CSV-like plain text alternative. And depending on the target application, so in a text editor, you would directly get this version automatically, because text this is the standard what the text application is offering. And so you have then the chance to copy this data to the clipboard. So that was basically the first part. And the second part here, when we close that one, is now, okay, at the beginning I said, okay, yeah, you also want to copy some IDs here. And this is now the second API, which is still in the experimental phase. It's the CellSelector. So it's also a plugin which is still experimental. So we are still working on it, but it's already in a quite good shape, and it's already used in certain of the SAP applications. And so the purpose of this plugin is to add the ability for the tables to also have the cell selection, not only row selection, but also cell selection independent of the row selection on top. And when we go back to this example, which is, by the way, a smart table example, you could, when I just add it here, and let it run again. So here we have now both enable the CopyProvider and the CellSelector. So it's now possible to select here certain cells, and but also certain rows and also certain cells, like and then you can also basically copy that one. And at the moment you see there only the cells are copied, so that is the default. In the end, when I remove that one here, so this is basically enough what you have to do for the smart tables. You also see there is no need for providing an extract data function, because the smart table knows about the metadata from the data service, so there's no need to specify any information about what needs to be copied. So this is all extracted. So it's from the metadata, it's only about adding this functionality to the smart table, and then you can select certain cells, and this property, what I just deleted here, is only needed that you can, I mixed it up. If you want to have, so let me show it again. So now we can have row and cell selection in combination. So like that, and when I copy that to Excel, let's get rid of that one. No. Copy it. You see only the cell selection was taken, which is the default what we use, because mostly you just want to have cell selection because you shortly want to copy something without interfering with the row selection, but you can also change this to full in this case. And then you can also have the same here, that you have basically both, and when you copy, then cells and rows are copied, and then it looks like this. So here, these are the rows. You see there are more data available, and these are the cells which were also copied in addition. And yeah, so you can also choose that option if this makes sense. And yeah, so basically all these examples, especially with the cell selection, was for the grid table so far, because here we have already a grid structure. But and there's one more example for the smart table available. So what you can also now do with the selection, for example, is taking the cell selection here and copy it, and then just paste it. So here it's the product column, it's the product filter. You can just paste it in there. Then you see the same. I have to press the go button, and then you see the result in the table. Basically of the exact selected cells, what you had done before. And yeah, so the cell selection is currently only available for the grid table so far, because there we have this grid structure. And yeah, but since I think it's quite brand new from the past week, that we also have a first demo version of cell selection for a responsive table. So you see there's a URL parameter on top. So it's already submitted. You can try it out, but it's not yet productive available. So here we have a responsive table. And here you can have also now cell selection, which in such a responsive table is quite natural, because here it looks the same like in the grid table. But it becomes more interesting as soon as you make the screen smaller, like that. And then some pop-in appears, and then basically the same would look like that. So when you want to copy only single cell of a column, then the pop-in is somehow skipped. So you can also have multiple rows and so on, but you can also include the pop-ins, but the pop-in is always taken as one big block. So it's
that would have been my question, Jens, yeah, whether you can also select them individual cells from the pop-in.
No, that's not possible. So that was a longer discussion, especially also with our accessibility colleagues, how we do that. And you maybe have noticed we have that already for quite a while, that in the responsive table, beside the row focus, what is the standard focus behavior, we in the meantime also have a cell-based focus navigation for keyboard. And there basically the discussion was exactly, it's now every content in the cell individually reachable via focus or not, and the conclusion was not to do it. Technically would have been possible to just realize it as a standard grid. So with arrow right you can navigate left and right, you can navigate all the cells of a row, but it would be totally confusing for such a layout that you now, when you want to move through the cells, that you have to use the arrow right key always. And that's why there was the decision from our designers and the accessibility team to use this as only as one global cell, and that's why also this the whole thing is copied as one big block here.
Okay, cool. But still, I think no other framework in the world has this functionality where I can select in such a responsive table with pop-ins cross the row only the real cells.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's still experimental. So we currently have done this in basically we try it out now with our colleagues from the applications, whether it's understood and so on. So this was yeah, the requirement was in the end for sure for the responsive table. We want also to have this copy mechanism available, but yeah, we have these pop-ins, and yeah, it somehow is a little bit destroying this grid structure, and therefore we have to find out how this can work.
All right, great job. So I don't see any question yet in the Q&A tool or the chat. As long as you are thinking about your questions, I have one. You showed this other sample in the demo kit in the SDK. Is there for the cell selection also a sample already in the SDK?
No, in the for the cell selection, we have not yet enabled a demo kit example for the cell selection because so far it's an experimental feature. But as I said, so the plan is to finalize this thing as soon as we have also this grid table now, the responsive table now enabled. I think we can remove also the experimental flag then from the cell selection, and then also extend the examples in the demo kit accordingly before that.
Okay, then thanks, Jens. Thanks a lot to everyone for presenting, actually. So thanks to Merlin and Matthias for support, and to Jens. Also thanks to everyone, of course, for attending, for your interest. The next UI5ers Live should take place on 11th of April. So we'll see each other again, I hope, next UI5ers Live. Thanks and bye.
See you. Take care. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.